Hello and welcome to the Virtual Nature School. I'm Claire and I'm delighted to welcome you from wherever you are in the world to our little community. This week's inquiry is all around shadows, and we've been looking at the idea of creating shadow puppets. Now, one of the things that we might want to think about is the natural world gives us an incredible amount of detail. If I look at this beautiful feather that I have behind me, it's not a solid shape. It's got lots of pieces that move. It's got fine little tiny feathers at the base here. It has different shapes and movement within it. Now, today is a day when we're looking at the detail within our puppets. I wonder what we're going to be inspired by today. Let's have a look at the film and find out.
Hello and welcome to our inquiry all around shadows. I've been seeing some amazing things where you've been sharing with me the shadow puppets that you've been making and all of your different ideas for your play that you're going to share with us. People have been adding detail, so we've been looking at cutting out parts of our shadow shapes and filling them with see-through fabric like cellophane here. When you do that, you find that you get colour shadow, so the pink dress looks pink and the yellow t-shirt looks yellow. We can add landscape, and landscape helps us to understand where your story is set. So is it the sea like we saw in Coralie and Orla's? Is it a mountain like we saw in Duncan's? Is it a castle? Is it a house? Is it going to be on a faraway island with palm trees on it? So now what we're doing is adding the scenery, we're adding the detail to our pictures. How we do that? Well, that's the tricky thing. So let's have a look inside the talking tub and see what ideas are in there. Well, when you go outside and you look at the beautiful patterns that trees leave us on the road below, you can see that that might have something to do with it. Do you remember when we looked for holes? Well, look, if we took some holes in a leaf and used them in our shadow play, that might be quite interesting. We might find bits of twisted roots that look really dramatic. Or maybe we could find sticks and grasses that when we put them together look like trees. This might be a really good backdrop. These are just house plants that were put in by a window. I can imagine a Tyrannosaurus Rex walking along the bottom of here, pretending that these are his landscape. We can get bits of leaf and we can overlap them so that they make all sorts of gridded shapes if we're trying to make a prison or a dark place. We can look for holes in the things that we find on our walks. This is a seed pod, and look at those beautiful shapes. They might be really interesting if we're to put them up against the light. Some things in your house have got really interesting patterns when you use them as a shadow play element. This is a wonderful colander, and you find this in your kitchen. So you might be able to look through your house and find things that when you test them against your torch or outside in the sunshine, give you some really unusual patterns. We can use silver foil, and we can use something to poke a hole in the silver foil, which would give us really interesting shapes and ideas for our scenery. We have some of our community who are going to be making their shadow play just using their hands. So they're going to have to work on how they can set the scene for their story using their scenery as well. Can you see the characters here? We can see we've got a fairy godmother, I think, on the side, and she's going towards a forest. And the people have made those shapes to make them look like a forest, and they've had to use 2 sticks because that's been such a big piece of paper. Here's another one. Somebody's had a go at making a dragon. And do you see that castle? All of those little white holes are the windows that have been cut out. And so we can make lots of different shapes in our scenery to make it more dramatic. We're going to need to make our puppet show theatre, and that means that we might want to get a cardboard box and a big piece of white paper or greaseproof paper and stretch it around our box so that we can do our performance in a way like that. If you've decided your performance is on a wall or on a sheet, that's also fabulous. Things that you might find useful: cardboard, of course, maybe some silver foil, if we can use that to make it into different shapes and poke holes into it. We can use cellophane and sweetie wrappers that are see-through to be able to give us some colour. And then we can use scissors, or we might be able to use a long, thin stick to hold our puppet up. However it is that you've decided to make your scenery, whether it's with natural things, whether it's with cardboard, silver foil, I look forward to hearing all of your ideas.
So wasn't that interesting? Thinking about the use of holes, even if it's something that's made by a needle or maybe a hole punch. Thinking about the outline shape that you create that gives the detail in your puppet. If you're an older member of our community, you might be able to use a craft knife to really add fine details into your puppet, so that when you come to tell your story, the viewer of that story can actually see all the detail that was in your mind when you visualized it as a story. I look forward to hearing about how you get on today, adding detail to your puppets.